Brawl Network, this is the Players Talk Live podcast, a show dedicated to the next generation of student athletes. Here are your hosts, Chad Allen, Tommy Polley, and Eric King.
Welcome to Players Talk Live, podcast on the Brawl Network, where each conversation is authentic and centered around educating the next generation of student athletes using 4 pillars: coaching, mentoring, developing, and influencing. I'm your host, Chad Allen, and I'm joined by co-hosts and former NFL players, Tommy Polley and Eric King. Today we have a special guest that is joining us today in the image of name, image, and likeness. We're going to talk on that topic today. We have a special guest, Mr. Dustin Mcguire. He's the founder of NameImageAndLikeness.com. Dustin is a former student athlete himself, a Division I basketball player who now runs a private law practice, and he serves as a family attorney, a mediator, and college athlete advocate. Welcome, Coach Dustin, because he's also a coach as well. So welcome, Coach.
Thanks so much for having me on, China. I'm excited to be here. And just have to give a special shout out to Tommy. Grew up in the St. Louis area and watched him playing for the Rams as a kid. So thank you for the inspiration, Tommy. I don't think I can put into words what you guys meant to us as kids growing up in St. Louis.
Yeah, man. Appreciate that, man. And like I tell a lot of people, man, St. Louis got, a great fan base. It's too bad it didn't work out here with the Rams, but man, my 4 years here, I had a great time. We won a lot of games, so I appreciate them so much.
Well, yeah, Tommy, again, since Dustin and you have connected, I'll let you kind of kick this week's off. Again, we're going to focus into the name, image, and likeness, but in the beginning, I just kind of want to touch on, we got to this point because our last episode that we just put out this past week is in reference of Micah Pittman, 4-star wide receiver that went to Oregon, is now coming up on his sophomore year at Oregon, and he's a student athlete that played for Eric King out there at Calabasas High School, where Eric was the coach. And this kid he's on the forefront. He knows something that everybody doesn't know in the sense of personal branding, developing things in preparation for name, image, and likeness, which is supposed to launch or be released this upcoming July. So if you haven't checked out that episode, it's a must listen to, I tell you, because this kid is showing what the forefront is going to be for college athletes and those who already have brands coming into college athletics, with his Pitt crew playing off of his family's last name of Pittman. And again, they have a lineage of athletes where his father was an NFL guy that played against Eric as well as Tommy. His brother was just a recent second-round draft pick in the NFL. And, of course, this kid has a bright future moving forward. So, Tommy, let's get it started with Dustin and introducing and get today's show going.
Yeah, this Dustin, just tell us a little bit about your background. And, I know you was a basketball player from Edwardsville, and then you went to SLU and played basketball. Just tell a little bit about your basketball journey.
Yes, thank you. And it all starts there for me with my experience with grassroots basketball. Ended up getting a scholarship to St. Louis University, and as I said, that's where I'm from. I grew up in the St. Louis area, from Edwardsville, Illinois, just about 25 minutes from downtown St. Louis. So, grew up worshiping the St. Louis Rams and the players, and it led to St. Louis being viewed as the big time with college basketball, and I've eventually took a scholarship there and committed to St. Louis University as a 16-year-old. The coach who recruited me, Brad Soderberg, lost his job after my freshman year, and they brought in a new coach at SLU, Rick Majerus, and that just really opened my eyes to the business that is college basketball. When you're given a scholarship and brought in under one coaching crew, and then a new coaching regime comes in, and I did not survive the transition there. So that experience in and of itself back in 2008 really taught me a lot.
And what you mean survive? Would they ran you off? How does that go? Like the new staff comes in, because this is good stuff, because a lot of players don't believe it. I be telling kids all the time that coaches are trying running you off, even though they tell you they love you. But just tell me about that process right there a little bit.
Sure. So like I said, 16 years old, I was offered a scholarship at St. Louis University. It's where I always wanted to play, 20 minutes away from campus. And they had just broke ground to build the new Chaffetz Arena there for SLU. So, it seemed like the no-brainer decision to go play at St. Louis University. And the coach that I was recruited under and committed to, Brad Soderberg, had just signed a 5-year contract my senior year in high school. So I thought that guaranteed his time there. And for a lot of kids, when you get recruited, you're promised a 4-year contract, but that's not really the reality of it. You so oftentimes have a 1-year renewable scholarship, which was my case. And after Rick Majerus came in after my sophomore season, there were 4 of us out of the 13 scholarship players that were told we would not have our scholarships renewed for the following season. So at that point, I went to Northern Kentucky University, who at the time was Division II, and I redshirted my sophomore season under Rick Majerus. So I didn't want to have to sit out another season, which the NCAA rules would require. So I went to the best Division II school that I could, and made the most of that transition, and went on to be a Division II All-American in Northern Kentucky.
Okay, so it worked out for you, and people go through that. Kids go through that, hundreds of them every year, in football and basketball and things like that. And it helps you deal with life sometimes quicker than you probably should. But just tell me how you became an advocate of college athletes. What's your purpose in that? What drives you to be an advocate?
Sure. So, Tommy, it's really all about the experience that I had, and it started there with, being told that my scholarship wouldn't be renewed at St. Louis University, and then transferred to Northern Kentucky University in 2008. Had a really bad back injury when I was playing in Northern Kentucky, and then was diagnosed with testicular cancer during my senior year of college. So I had a lot that happened, just between those 3 events that I mentioned. As a college basketball player. So, I got to see, what it's like when there's the crowd's not cheering, so to speak, and when things go badly. And, fortunately, when I was at Northern Kentucky, I had a great coach, Dave Beazold, who gave me the opportunity to stick around as a graduate assistant coach. And it was really during that time as a graduate assistant that my eyes were open to the experience of student athletes, and just, in fact, what it means to go through the grind of, getting recruited and working to keep your scholarship. So got to see the college basketball from the coach's standpoint right after playing, and just really, as I said, opened my eyes to, how difficult it can be, and just how much it means to these student athletes to get the opportunity to participate in college athletics.
So tell me about name, image, and likeness. How did you, before I pass it on to E, just tell me about name, image, and likeness. What made you, brand it, come up with the web, your .com, your website, everything that's on it? What inspired that?
So while I was a graduate assistant coach, I was attending evening law school. So I got my law degree in 2014. And that was right about the same time that the Ed O'Bannon lawsuit was being settled. And for those of you in the audience that don't know about Ed O'Bannon and the lawsuit that came about from the NCAA video games, they were video games, college basketball, college football, in which the players' digital avatars were used. So their likeness essentially was used in the games to make the games as real as possible, made by EA Sports. And I was featured on the games myself at St. Louis University while I was there. So I got to see, the business side of it. And, it was really the reason why I went to law school, just knowing about that lawsuit and knowing that, there were rights that the athletes had. For the first time, I was learning about that as I was playing. So, followed that very, very closely. The lawsuit settled in 2014. I got my law degree in 2004. I got out of law school. I had the opportunity to help somewhere between 50 and 100 of the athletes who were on those football and basketball games receive a portion of the settlement. There was $60 million between EA Sports and the NCAA for that Ed O'Bannon lawsuit settlement. And no one really thought it was real because it was video games, right? I mean, you don't really think that it's ever going to be real in terms of getting a piece of the money. But it was, and I made sure that my former teammates knew that it was real, and a lot of guys were able to get, 5, 6, 7 $1,000 for appearing on those video games. So that concept was name, image, likeness. And we really have Ed O'Bannon to thank for bringing that lawsuit on in the recent years. Over the past 18 months, we've seen California, then Colorado, most recently the state of Florida has passed state laws in which it has become against state law for any state to have an entity such as the NCAA deny athletes the same opportunities as any other student or any other citizen in the state to benefit from the use of their name, image, and likeness.
Man, that's great, Dustin. That's a lot of information, and I guess that leads me into having you talk about your name, image, and likeness brand and .com and the services that you provide. I see here you spoke about the digital avatar licensing. It also, autograph signing program, player appearance. That's pretty self-explanatory. And endorsements and jersey sales. Just talking about some of the service that you and your people provide. One of the things that struck me was the social media, and I guess from there I wanted to know what resources can you provide that will help athletes gain a bigger social media following, create this bigger brand, and how can they capitalize on that? What are you doing specifically for that? Or what will you do in the future?
Sure. I think the main thing to understand about social media is just, the reach that you can have with it. And, that's the world we live in, particularly during this pandemic where everybody's working remotely anyway. It's really important to understand your reach. And the reality is college athletes are very, very well known, not just on their campus, but in their communities. So, to capitalize on that and to really reach, your potential as a brand, as an individual brand, requires understanding your reach. And that really is defined by your followers. And, there's just like the celebrities today, there's a level of followers that follow athletes. It's really amazing to me when you look at, Eric, the number of followers that some of these athletes have, guys that we, everyday common sports fans don't even know their name. You look at their Instagram or their Twitter following, they've got 20, 30, 40,000 followers. And, for the very first time here very soon, they're going to be able to capitalize on that and monetize the value of their following and the influence that they have.
So say, for instance, I'm an athlete, I'm a high school football player, I'm a high school basketball player, and here I got about 1,500 followers. How can I build that brand? Say, for instance, I'm a 3-star recruit, or I'm a 4-star recruit, so it might be picking up. In what ways can I pick that up? In what ways can I build that brand? In what ways can, I might have a couple scholarship offers from a couple Power 5 schools. How do I now utilize that and leverage that to building something that I want that can be that I can monetize?
Sure, that's a great question, and we're seeing a lot of focus being put on right now, building your brand once you're part of the university. And there are companies that are out there that are willing to help you, provide content and put up posts on your social media, and that's all fantastic once you're on the campus. But the reality is, this name, image, likeness has a lot to do with recruiting. And anybody who doesn't bring up recruiting when talking about name, image, likeness, in my opinion, doesn't truly understand it, because you have to have this conversation about recruiting and the impact that it will have. So when you're a high school athlete, at 15, 16, 17 years old, we all know anybody that pays attention to grassroots basketball and football, I'm sure is the same way. I just come from basketball, and I know, at 15 years old, if you're a college-bound player, you've got an Adidas label or a Nike label or an Under Armour label on you from the time you're, again, 15 years old, that spring and summer after your freshman year. So how can you build your following and make sure that people are aware of who you are? If you're getting a scholarship offer, you need to be making sure that you're making that known. And it doesn't have to be anything elaborate or, so blessed to receive this or anything like that. It's just, posting an emblem of the school and just receiving an offer from XYZ University today, that will build your followers, because, today the following of the individual athletic programs, they want to know, right? If you're a true fan and you're looking at these recruiting classes, who's coming in next year, the following year, and how are we going to be competitive? How are we going to build our program in order to beat our rival? You're looking at who's getting scholarship offers. So, it's no secret. You look at rivals.com or ESPN recruiting. I mean, this is multi-million-dollar stuff we're talking about here with, college basketball, college football recruiting. And it's not just about the elite level of these sports. It's not just about the revenue-generating sports of basketball and football. Again, the reality is that these prospective student athletes, as the NCAA defines them, have an incredible amount of value. The coaches so oftentimes are doing everything they can to get these kids on campus to take a visit. And that's where I believe the value is the highest for these prospective student athletes to capitalize on that. You've got all these coaches and schools courting you to come to their school. Well, how can I use that time where I'm being sought after? How can I use that to benefit me? Making people aware, letting them know that you're going to this tournament, or I'm going to be competing next summer at the Spiece.
It's almost like the theme of fake it till you make it. You heard that? In some ways, right? In some ways, right?
Absolutely. And everybody wants to be playing on ESPN, but the reality is if you're going to get there, if you're going to be playing on ESPN, you spend a lot of time playing at the local level. And, how do you become, the not only the best athlete, but one of the best known athletes in your city, in your town? Well, it has a lot to do with social media. And if you're, bringing people into the stadium and into the gym to watch you play, well, they should also be taking a look at what you're doing on social media. And I think that's where the brands are going to be paying attention to.
Nice. And that's great, man. That was like a 10-part answer, man. You gave me a lot there. And one more question I wanted for you, Dustin. Being as a man, you've been in adverse situations. That college coaching change, I had to deal with one of those. I was actually a survivor of it, but I know what you mean, man. It was very challenging. With you being as though you started one practice and now you're entering into another practice, what is the most complicated part about establishing this process for the name, image, and likeness?
Well, right now there is so much up in the air with name, image, likeness. I mean, believe it or not, during the middle of this pandemic, everything that's going on in our country right now, we have hearings going on in the United States Congress over name, image, likeness. That's how important it is. And I think
and that's going on right now, you say.
The week before that, there are hearings going on over name, image, likeness. And why is that? Necessarily that college sports are so important that it is to occupy the time of our federal government. It has a lot to do with these states passing their individual laws. Like I had repeated, July 1st of 2021 is when Florida's law goes into effect. Well, Congress is going to work very hard to keep us as the United States of America and to make sure that we have a uniform approach to our laws. What's going to happen when the state of Florida, with its 11 Division I institutions, is able to tell these prospective student athletes that are coming in, hey, you can do the same thing at Alabama, but you can also make money from your name, image, likeness. It's going to be a no-brainer that the kids are going to flock to not only Florida State, Florida, and Miami, but also Florida Gulf Coast and Stetson, et cetera, et cetera. So, as of right now, as we sit here and record this podcast, the Division I schools in the state of Florida are positioned to dominate over the next year, 2-3 years, unless the federal government acts or other states get on board.
And Chad, it's funny, you talked about that at one point in time. You said Florida is ahead of the curve. Florida has already started with this, with getting that judicial thing straight. You know what I mean? We talked about that. So it's funny that you mentioned that, and I'm going to just throw it over to Chad now.
California passed the law too, right? Didn't California pass the rule? I
think they're in the middle of it or right behind, but they're kind of like next up. Like you said, Florida, Texas, California, I think those are the first states that are kind of on the brink.
Florida has passed, Colorado has passed, and California has passed as we sit here today. And California and Colorado does not go into effect until January of 2023. So Florida moved that target date up 18 months by saying we're starting July 1 of 2021. And that's why we see Congress looking at June 30th of 2021 as a deadline to get a national approach to name, image, likeness established.
So if I'm a 5-star recruit 2021 and I got an opportunity to go to Florida or Florida State or Alabama or Ole Miss, it's like a no-brainer because I can pretty much be potentially having a chance to earn $500,000 at Florida State through name, image, and likeness.
Exactly, depending on what your NIL value is.
Right.
But the free market is going to exist in the state of Florida, and as we sit here again, it's not going to exist in any other state until 2023.
Talking about this in ahead of the curve, California was the first, but like Dustin alluded to, Florida sped it up. Like Florida took it and said, hey, if you want to put it out there, we're going to speed it up because we're going to make money off. Again, they look at sports and football in particular very differently than a lot of universities outside in other states. Remember, Florida has some of the most flashiest teams, Florida State in Tommy's era, the Miami dancing Miami, guys. You had the Gator Chomp. You have all of these things that are monikers that are like crazy in those college towns and across the nation that are symbolisms, right? So we talked about it a couple of weeks ago with the Sanders kid, Deion's son who signed with FAU, and I told you guys then, I said that's ahead of the curve of his branding. That's not just I like this coach, I like this situation. It also gives him the opportunity that he would not have in another state starting in 2021 far as his branding of name, image, and likeness. So as we transition, Dustin, by trade, as an attorney, you want to give the best advice and educate your clients. So how important is education prior to 2021? Like everybody's gearing up with branding, but the importance of understanding truly what name, image, and likeness is, how important is that?
It's incredibly important right now. And Chad, I mean, you bring up the key topic right now, that education piece, because just because it's not allowed at this moment doesn't mean you shouldn't be informed. I think with these new rights comes a lot of responsibility, right? Especially for these guys that are going to be able to make some money. If you're going to be able to make $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, at a minimum, you're going to have to pay taxes, right? So it comes with some responsibility in terms of knowing what you got to do. And I think really, the focus has to be on providing resources to these guys to make sure that, they understand what they can and cannot do, but also that they're able to truly capitalize on it and aren't going to be put in a situation where they think, I'm getting this money and I don't have to pay taxes on it. Now you're getting yourself in trouble with the IRS. So, the professional resources need to be there, from attorneys to CPAs, just making sure that, the resources are there, and these student athletes that have the opportunity to now make money for the first time aren't just left to themselves to figure out what in the world that means.
Yeah, I agree, because that's the first thing with me, being as a professional and Eric and Tommy being a professional, as they move to the NFL, the first thing you start thinking about is the legal representation, right? Whether it's contract, review, financial advisors. So I'm going to kind of backtrack a little bit. When you talked about the AAU or the student athlete who's now putting their scholarship out there, as they build their brand, should they also start thinking about starting an LLC or starting to think business-wise before they come into the university? Like, should they hire an attorney like yourself or look to work with someone like you?
Well, I think it's early to say right now on that, Chad, because, the proposal we most recently saw from the Power 5 conferences, which was submitted to Congress to get passed it in the federal law I had mentioned, was that athletes would have to wait a full semester and complete a full semester on a college campus before having the right to receive NIL benefits. And whether or not that will ultimately be the approach, that remains to be determined. But, I think, it's up to you as a college freshman, right? If you're going to be on campus as a freshman, either that fall semester or, after completing one semester, according to the Power 5's proposal, you'll be able to have NIL value. That means being able to put on camps and clinics, working with kids, and of course the social media, like we had talked about. And you raised the important question of establishing the LLC. I think, yes, that needs to be done because, the most simple example I can give, from the standpoint of an attorney that would be helping and advising these kids that are making money for the first time is, okay, if you make $10,000 through your NIL during the course of your season, whether that's social media or putting on lessons or your personal appearance, what have you, $10,000. Well, if that's just income, that's going to be $10,000 of taxable income. But if you're going to then put on a camp, maybe you have expenses that go towards that camp that you can deduct from your NIL receipts. So instead of paying, tax on the full value of what you received during the season, maybe that summer camp is essentially a tax write-off, so that you're bringing your taxable income down, and then that amount that you ultimately have to pay tax on is substantially less than what you actually see.
So what I'm hearing is not only establishing a brand, but establishing a business model of how to maximize your, because at the end of the day, yeah, you might be able to make money, but again, as NFL players and professional athletes understand, the more money you make, you go into a different tax bracket. So these are the educational things that you're suggesting that they need to learn, right? This is the professional resources you're talking about, right, Dustin?
Absolutely. And the question remains to be answered. Will the athletic departments, have this interest to make sure that the resources are there for the athletes? I sure hope they are. We see every resource being there, from the academic support to how many calories you're putting in your body, in preparation for the season. I mean, the detail is there. And I don't think anyone can say that, that the athletes aren't given a good chance at having a good athletic experience. They are. It's a very good experience on the majority of these athletic campuses. But you add in NIL, and then how does that look? Will the resources be there? Again, the question remains to be answered. But that goes back to knowing your rights and knowing, do I have to defer to the athletic department, or can I go out and get my own attorney? And there, like with a lot of other areas right now, we still have questions. It's remaining to be determined as to whether you'll be able to step on campus and already have an agent. The agent rule is very much still up in the air. We had seen last fall, I think it was, the NCAA said, okay, you can have an agent as a college basketball player if you're proceeding towards the NBA draft, but then if you don't get drafted, you got to lose that agent. So that's where we've seen the NCAA with the agency. Will there be more flexibility with agents? Yes, I think so. But, bottom line, however it shakes out, these kids, they have to have someone in their corner who's looking out for their interests and their interests alone.
So tell me about this third party, because on my whole life, they try to run the third party guy off. Tell me now the reintroduction. What's the third party going to look like at the college level now for these people?
Well, it still is up in the air. How will the third parties, be handled? What rights will they have to get access to the players? We still don't know. And the NCAA is essentially begging Congress right now to bail them out and give them an antitrust exemption to say, hey, put a federal approach in place and allow us to still carve out some areas where there's not NIL benefits. So it's still up in the air, and I don't mean to be slippery with my answers here, but it's hard to be definitive when we don't know. We've got individual states taking their approaches. We've got Congress working on it, and the NCAA making their recommendation and working through their lobbyists. So, ultimately, it's as I said, up in the air. What rights will the athletes have? This coming October, there is going to be an announcement from the NCAA in terms of what exactly NIL will look like. And then that following January 2021, that's when NCAA Divisions 1, 2, and 3 will vote on the proposals that have come out from the NCAA.
And like you said, it's slippery, Dustin, because from the NCAA institutional perspective, they're saying that the institution, yes, can provide resources, as you're saying, that they're going to need, but they can't assist. Right, so that's where the third party, Tommy, is welcomed in, because the institution is not able to help negotiate or help work with the student athlete throughout that process of entertaining someone that may come in from that name, image, and likeness perspective. So The best thing that an institution can do is just provide resources. But again, what does that look like? Because what are they providing resources to when, like Dustin is alluding to, there's no cookie cutter yet. There's no answer, right? It's just kind of hypothetical.
Yeah. And Chad, we will have more clarity there, and whether the players are able to have every right or just some of the rights it's remaining to be determined. But the obvious situation is that the businesses, the local businesses in the communities and around the athletic department that are most likely to invest their precious marketing dollars with the athletes are those businesses that are already working with the athletic departments. I mean, that's the reality of it, right? If you're looking at giving money towards the athletes to help grow your business, I mean, you're probably already working with the athletic department in some capacity. So there certainly is that conflict there, that conflict of interest between, the athletic department and the individual athletes, because, if you have one business who's maybe looking at dividing their investment, that's not going to be good for the athletic department. The reality is that money going to the individual athletes as opposed to the athletic department, that certainly poses a threat to the business model that is college athletics.
So if I'm a high school player, right? And I heard you say, they gotta, when they go to college, then they gotta wait a year before they actually can start making money. What if I come in with Zion Williamson and I got a big brand already, and I come in with 1 million followers and already from YouTube or whatever the case across all my platforms? I can't, or the local car dealership want me to do an autograph signing and things like that. I can't participate in that stuff right there as a high school player.
As of right now, you cannot. You would lose your amateur status. And you bring up Zion Williamson, Tommy. I'm a believer that Zion is really the reason why we're having this conversation. I don't know if you remember
right.
the play, against North Carolina when he blew out his Nike shoe. It kind of all came to the light at that moment. You had former President Barack Obama sitting courtside, millions of people watching this commercial spectacle, right? And here, Zion Williamson, projected number 1 pick in the NBA draft. He goes 30 seconds into the game, makes a move to the rim, and he blows out his Nike shoe. What happened to Nike stock in that moment? It went down $1 billion with a B over what happened in a college, an amateur game, right? A bunch of amateurs just playing in the rec center, as the NCAA would have us believe. But obviously, at that moment, we all realized that this is commercial. That, like I said, with Zion Williamson, I think it was around 2 million followers he had when he came into Duke, and he left with significantly more than that. So, how much did Zion build Duke's brand? How much did Duke build Zion's brand? I think that's a question, but there's no doubting the fact that these individual athletes are able to have their own brand today because of social media, because of the exposure that they're all given. And it's time that they get the opportunity to tap into that free market like everyone else in society.
And Dustin, I just wanted to leave you with one more question, man. I wanted to know, moving forward, how does Dustin Mcguire in the future set himself apart from other NIL lawyers? What do you have to offer that maybe somebody else doesn't have to offer?
Well, Eric, I think it really comes down to my experience in college athletics, both as a Division I player and as a Division I coach. I know there are a lot of people that are getting involved in NIL, a lot of professionals. And the reality is there will be a lot of professional sports agents that want to bring down their services essentially to the college athletes that are getting these opportunities. But, I'm a believer that the college athlete experience is unique. It's certainly different than the professional experience because, at a minimum, you have to go to class and at least, pretend to be a student. And I hope that it's much more than just going through the motions academically. I think, being on a college campus, the reality is it needs to be an educational focus and still a priority of getting a degree and coming out with something of value that can benefit you for the rest of your life. So how am I different? I think I'm different in the sense that, I understand the value of the academic side while also having an appreciation, understanding for just how special and unique these elite athletes' talent is, and with that understanding that there needs to be a realization of their value, right? And it's not one or the other. It's not you can get an education or you can go to Europe and play professional basketball. We are for the first time going to see a situation in which you can do both.
I wanted to talk to you about a little bit about Sonny Vaquero. Sonny Vaquero, he was Adidas soul in the whole guy, the Adidas Nike guy back in the days. And he's a big advocate of players' brand. I know he was big behind the Ed O'Bannon piece. Let's talk about what Sonny, meant to you. And because I seen you signing the bill with him and all that good stuff. Just talk about that process and what Sonny has been to this whole movement.
Yes, Tommy, thank you for asking about Sonny, because he's really the backbone of all this. I mentioned Ed O'Bannon, but it was really Sonny that was the driving force of that lawsuit, and he has been the driving force of the individual states bringing about the NIL laws. So I had the opportunity to work with Representative Emmanuel Chris Welch from up near Chicago on Illinois' bill to get Illinois to pass the same law that California and Colorado passed. It's still, from what I understand, being worked on in the state of Illinois. It passed in the House of Representatives, has not made it through the Senate yet. But Representative Welch was also very close with Sonny Vaquero. And I've spoken with Sonny every couple of weeks and just kept in touch with him about his work. And, it's really his vision and his understanding that these athletes have so much value on a grassroots level. I was a 15-year-old. And I was at the Reebok ABCD camp and had the opportunity to be on the same team with some guys that, went to play on to the big time, Greg Oden, Michael Conley, Daquan Cook. And I saw the commercial aspect then. And it just so happened while I was at the Reebok ABCD camp as a 15-year-old that the NBA's one and done rule was put in place. So, there I was out in New Jersey playing with Greg Oden and, saw him have to go to Ohio State for 1 year. Because for the very first time, you could no longer be able to go directly to the NBA. And I knew at that moment that it was wrong. And I heard Sonny give a speech. And I'm not kidding. I was sitting next to Greg Oden as Sonny gave his speech. And I heard the passion in his voice about this. And I didn't truly understand it at that time. I didn't fully grasp it. But his message was simple that day in that they took away your choice. They took away your choice. So for the very first time, you didn't have the choice as a Greg Oden to go directly to the NBA. So we saw LeBron James and then Dwight Howard do that. And so then the very next year, Greg Oden had to go to Ohio State. And what happened? Well, he got hurt and didn't ultimately end up, making the money that we all know that he was worth. So that experience and that firsthand knowledge and understanding of the flaw in our system has led me to be here today.
Oh, man, that's awesome, Dustin, to kind of, have that experience and that insight. And I think that's what we want to bring to this platform, is not just being an expert now at the latter end of your life and career, but understanding what a student athlete is going through now throughout the journey, because each one of us has had our own journey. And I think those experiences really bring some insight and color to the podcast, because it's not just what we're reading or what we think is to be true. These are true pioneers that you've been exposed to and gotten insight and information that you're now giving back to a platform that, again, anyone can listen in and get this from us. So I like to just end with, Eric has a daughter that's a 9th grader, and she's a rising basketball star, we'll say. And Tommy has one that is now in college, a son who's playing at UConn. The male versus women opportunities with NIL, I think there's some myths that people don't believe, because I know Open Doors spoke that Nebraska's biggest star or brand is a women's volleyball player, right? And I think they broke down some of the top athletes were women in their women's sports. So just kind of touch on that. Would there be a lane for females or women's sports for NIL?
Absolutely, Chad. And it's so important for people to understand that is perhaps the biggest piece of knowledge to take away from our discussion and from NIL in general, that it's not just the elite level men's basketball and football players. It's every sport. If you're in the spotlight, that's your moment. And no more so for the female athletes. So many of them don't get the opportunity like the men to play professional at all. So those 4 years, that's it for them. So you capitalize on those 4 years to the fullest extent possible, and then that's it. There's no professional, most likely. So to me, it is the female athletes, it is the athletes and the quote non-revenue generating sports that stand to benefit the most from this, because again, those 4 years that they have to be a college athlete, that's their time to shine, and that's the brightest the stage will ever be.
I've been actually looking at some female basketball players' profiles now. I've been up on it a little bit more just because of what's happening with my daughter and how she's been developing. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I was looking at a couple of the UConn girls, and their platform and their following is bigger than some NFL players. You know what I mean? So it's funny that we're talking about this, because I'm almost starting to think now, just from some of the research that I've done, that some of these female basketball players and some of these female some of these females that play sports and in these different industries, man, they have huge brands. You know,
they do, Eric. They absolutely do, and they can grow their brands, and it can be a mutually beneficial relationship between the athletic department, the individual team, and the players. And that's what I hope to do through NameImageLikeness.com is just to help the players build their brands, and simultaneous they will build the brands of the individual teams, as I said.
Awesome. And right before we let you go, Dustin, with that same sentiment, college town or major city?
College town, Chad, because the market is going to be so much smaller. You know, you look at Illinois, in Champaign, Illinois, or Missouri in Columbia, Illinois, or Columbia, Missouri, rather. You know, you compare that to, you know, some of these big city schools where you're competing against the Major League Baseball, the NFL, NBA in some cases. There's no question that, you know, these at certain schools, college players are going to have the opportunity to be celebrities. Not to say that you can't be at a big market school, but, you know, if NIL is it for you and you want to go to a school to capitalize fully on NIL, I think you need to look carefully at not going to a school that's in too big of a market personally.
I tell you, man, thank you. Again, we took a lot of your time. I know you're out with your family and being a father. So at the end of the day, you know, feel free to just let people know where they can find you. I know it's NameImageAndLikeness.com, but any of your socials that you would like to share with us at this time so people can follow you. We would like to get you back on the show again at a later time to kind of rehash, you know, and give updates. But in the meantime, is there any way someone can follow you if they want to learn more about Name, Image, and Likeness?
Absolutely. Again, NameImageLikeness.com is the site. My name is Dustin Mcguire. I'm an attorney in Edwardsville, Illinois. You can find my law office. I'm a family law attorney in Edwardsville, Illinois. It's edwardsvillefamilylaw.com. My phone number at my law office is 618-692-5255. And again, this name, image, likeness is my passion. I hope to be a resource to not only the current college athletes, but the prospective athletes, and just provide the knowledge and resources is the focus.
Again, Dustin, thank you, Tommy. I don't know, Eric, if you have any last minute. We're going to kind of continue on, but I want to let Dustin go and get back to his family. But again, if there's anything last minute you want to say to Dustin.
No, thanks, Dustin, for coming on. We look forward to hearing from you when down the road, because I know it's going to be a lot of evolving process. So look forward to hearing from you later on.
Thank you, Tommy. Thanks for having me on. I'll come back anytime you guys can have me.
Dustin, thanks for the knowledge. Thanks for the information. I got a better understanding of what we're going to, where we're headed in the future. So thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Eric. Pleasure to be with you guys. Thank you.
All right.
All right. Thank you
Take
again.
care. Bye-bye.
So, yeah, as we transition out, we just listened to Dustin Mcguire, founder of NameImageAndLikeness.com. And, again, he's dropped a lot of knowledgeable gems for us as well as for our audience. Again, this is something, please understand, audience, that this is an ongoing process. And it's going to take not only to July 1st, 2021, but even thereafter. But the key things that you can take from this is education, number one. Educating yourself on what's the laws, what is it going to be, where is it going to be in effect? Because right now, Florida is going to be on the front, right? But we also know that Colorado and California have also passed the laws. So as a student athlete, those may be states. Yeah, there may be states that you're thinking about exploring or adding more questions to your recruiting if you're getting recruited by a school in that state, because like Dustin said, it's no way name, image, and likeness cannot be a part of the recruiting conversation for a student athlete that's potentially coming in. So again, you can find him at nameimageandlikeness.com. And again, we're going to try to bring him back on, but I tell you, I learned a lot today from that. I know as we transition, because we wanted to hit on Friday's hot topic, again, of the fact that student athletes will now retain eligibility in essence, because they will not have to forego eligibility with this season, whether they play or not play. And why does that make sense? Because in Division I, whether you play or not play, your clock runs. And I think some people don't understand that versus Division II or Division III, where your eligibility, if you're not enrolled in the semester, if you take a semester off, your clock actually stops. But in Division I, once you initially enroll, and honestly, I believe it's when your class enrolls, so your graduating class. So once you graduate from high school, whether you go on and say, hey, I'm enrolled in college and start playing or not, if you decide your sophomore year to start playing, well, guess what? You don't still have the 5 years to play for that you would have had if you would initially went in. So that's why that makes a lot of sense. But I want to hear from the both of you guys in reference to, what do you think that log jam is going to be now with the scholarships? Because they're going to increase rosters, but what does that mean money-wise? So I don't know, Eric, touch on that, because with your high school now being shut down in California, your season, or suspended to spring rather, speak on what you're hearing from your student athletes and their concerns.
One of the things that I noticed is I've noticed a couple of kids have actually transferred out of state. I know one of the former quarterbacks that we had at Long Beach Polley, Jake Garcia, I think he's also a USC commit. He decided that he did not want to pass up his senior year of eligibility. He felt that he needed to sharpen his tools. I think he's a great player. You should be checking for him. Everybody check for Jake Garcia, top quarterback coming out in 2021 class. He just relocated to Georgia. I want to say Grayson, Georgia. I'm not exactly sure of the school, but he felt like that had to be done for him to sharpen his tools for him to get ready to go to school the next year.
That's a great program.
Yeah, it's a great program. I'm seeing a little bit of that. I'm seeing kids take their workout seriously. I'm also hearing about some kids that might be falling off the deep end, or some of them won't be, might be missing when it's time to actually play ball, because, we have to think about it. We got to think about some of our kids that might be in some of these urban areas. They don't have the same resources as some of the kids that might, live in the valleys or by the IE or in Calabasas area or something like that, of that nature. So it's an interesting dynamic. A lot of the private schools have been able to bring their players in and kind of keep them in the film room and workouts and different types of things like that. But as a whole, it's been a big shuffle. And I honestly don't know how it's all going to completely transpire.
And for me, it's going to be tricky. If I'm an incoming freshman, and I'm looking at Alabama, and it's looking like they got 4 defensive ends, and one of them looked like they was going to graduate. Now he's coming back. Now I'm the 5th defensive end. I might want to look to go somewhere else that maybe less attractive than Alabama. So, it's going to be a log jam. Then you got the money part.
So are we going to see this talent spread out now? Like, what's going? I got so many questions. I don't know. Are we going to see, can Missouri get good now? Because a couple kids might not go to Texas because it's a log jam at Texas. So now, instead of those recruits, now they go to Texas Tech. Now they go to Baylor. What happens? And
that's why I retweeted yesterday, once that came out officially, that they was getting people back there. Yeah, I say now the questions officially began, because it's so many moving parts. You got the Ivy League school saying, no, y'all out of here. He told they spring sports, no, if they grant y'all extra year, it won't be at Harvard. You got to do that somewhere else, because we just don't have the resources. And I think a lot of teams are going to be in that predicament. So even though they put out, you get this extra year, but where's the money going to really come from? So all those things we got to deal with. Then if I'm a kid, do I go to a school that has 5 defensive ends? I'm the 5th guy, 6th guy. Instead of, 2 guys graduated, and now I'm the 3rd guy or the 4th guy. So, it's a lot of questions going to be had to be asked.
My daughter's entering her freshman year. Her freshman year of high school. Yeah. And she mentioned to me the other day, she said, "Oh, why did coronavirus have to hit right now? I'm missing out on my summer league and missing out on the beginning of school." I said, "Baby, you're lucky. You're going into your freshman year. Imagine if you were exiting school. Imagine if you were graduating senior and you didn't have you had scholarship offers, and then all of this happened and all the offers were pulled off the table." I said, you could be in a lot worse situation. So we're here. Everybody's had to adapt. Everybody's had to develop and grow and figure things out. But for our seniors on both ends, our seniors leaving high school and our seniors leaving college, those are the kids that I'm most concerned about.
Yeah, exactly. We had one on about a couple weeks ago, Shaq Smith. He's in that predicament. 5th-year senior. Do they give him a 6-year back? Then he's going to be 24. 25 maybe when he graduates, getting to the league. Now they start looking at your league like you're a little long in the tooth. So it's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made that people are not used to making. So they're going to need to get a lot of information on that. So,
Tommy, do you tell one of your high school kids to think about reclassifying? Because academically, they're going to be on pace, right? But to put themselves in a better situation, I know you like me, we both have spent some time at a prep school, and the ability to have that gap year sometimes in your development is crucial, right? In your athletic development. And we all know, being football guys, that taking a year off or not sharpening your skills, because I look at it like this too. If Alabama, even if I get my year back, right, and I'm at a non-Power 5, I'm at a school that has suspended this until spring. You're getting an advantage either way by continuing to do player development, whether that's practicing, whether that's getting out there and potentially having some games, even if it shuts down. Even if I feel, well, I got a year back and I don't lose anything, am I really behind still? Because essentially, say even if they cut the season off right now, right, or they play a couple games, they have pretty much gotten a spring ball. They've gotten a spring practice session in where someone else has not gone through spring, has not gone through fall, and then now spring, they suspended to spring 2021, but we don't know if they're going to even bring it back in spring 2021. So just think about that lapse of time as former football players, that callus on our body. Like, we have really lost a callus. So I don't know, maybe we all can speak on that. Like, how do you feel injury-wise, right, or just development-wise from your sport? Like,
anytime you don't get those reps, you're not going to get better. The old saying, you don't get better, you get worse. If you're not actively trying to, playing your sport. So, that's the case here. So the people that's going to be at a practice, I had a kid just went to D2 the other day. He just got on campus, and for him, he had to get eligible. Have to come out of JUCO and had to make sure he graduated and things like that. So he just got to campus. But for him, he wasn't in a lot of shape. So for him, it's going to give him time to get in that shape. Some guys was already in shape. They was ready for the season. So those guys, of course, it's going to be redundant, doing the same drills over and over again for the next 5-6 months until that spring thing comes. But
it's tough.
It's going to be tough. And then you talk about playing in the spring, then come back for a fall season, which is a month and a half later. That's a wear and tear on the body.
And you better hope you don't have a serious injury, because then you have a serious injury, you're not going to be able to recover.
Yeah, I don't care who you are, playing 20 games in a season. in a year, in one calendar year, that's a lot.
So do you think that's why they giving them the year? Because essentially, like if Eric's saying, like, if that happens, right, this is not my freshman year anyway. So even if I were to tear my ACL, my freshman year doesn't start until next year. So is that going to impact me?
I think it's not a cookie cutter thing. I think everybody's different. Like,
everybody's situation is different, huh?
Yeah, if a kid I had a kid, at Florida State, he's just coming back from injury. Maybe another couple months for him not to play, maybe will help him rejuvenate. My son just tore his ACL. Okay. Maybe them not playing basketball right away will help him recuperate.
Get extra time with the trainer, extra time.
But then you got some guys like Michael Parsons, like, man, I'm out of here. Like, I'm getting this money. I ain't wasting time on nothing. So I think it's a cookie cutter. Then you got most of the guys. Like, you feel me? Those are the 1% guys. Most of the guys want to play their eligibility, Some guys just know this it. They're not going to be able to play a competitive sport ever again, especially football. Sometimes you can get in a basketball league or whatever the case, but you're not going to be able to play a competitive sport. People still want to go out the right way. They don't want to go out on and pay 3 years, COVID and all that. So people are still going to most people are still going to try to play. But like Nick Saban said the other day, the stars in the springtime, they're going to be gone. The guys, the first, second, third round picks, they out of there. They ain't risking it. Even from a senior or a junior, I ain't playing. So now it's going to be like a spring, glorified spring football game. Football year. That's in front of stands.
And it's funny that you mentioned that about
you're going to have to pay for.
About the top players, because, just in this week, Wake Forest, our leading receiver, Sage Surratt, he decided to opt out. And it's funny that you mentioned that because he's opting out to save the body, right? I think he's a redshirt sophomore, coming off a sophomore year at the end of the year. I want to say he broke his ankle or had a hairline fracture in the ankle of some sort. It's kind of like a no-brainer. Why would I come back and try to force to play a year where I don't know if I'm going to play and how long we're going to play? I'm coming off of an injury. I'm 6'4", 6'5". I have a potential of getting in that first 2 to 3 rounds.
I ain't playing.
Well, I ain't playing, and it's funny, on the high school level, I got a kid who's a 4-star kid, 4-star, 5-star kid. Here he played JV and varsity. He played every game his sophomore year, dealt with some injuries. He probably, as a sophomore, played more snaps than anybody. To me, it's almost like, bro, you need to do one more year and you need to find a way to get out of here, because you don't need to take too much more on your body at the high school level for somebody that's in his situation. So back to what you both were saying, and I feel that every individual case is different. Yeah, and it's so many individual cases that it's going to be a clusterfuck. I hate to use that term, but it really is.
Yes, it is. It's going to be that way. I mean, we just had a kid here that's going to set to go to Missouri in January. And they just moved our stuff back, our high school season back to the spring, basically. So that kid said, I'm out of here. I'm going to school. I ain't got time to be messing around with this high school. I'll be in school in January.
And get hurt in the spring when he should have been at school?
Good for me. I ain't got to play against him.
I'm about to say, so that's the other thing. Another thing to think about, remember, they delayed it, but don't forget about the one-time transfer rule, right? So that is an option for some of these student athletes as well. Like you said, that maybe you went somewhere anticipating that student athlete leaving school and entering the draft, and he doesn't. You now have the ability to go and say, you know what? I'm going to utilize this one-year transfer rule, and maybe I go to Illinois, Missouri, or USF or something, like if I'm already in Florida, because that kid may say, you know what? I'm at Miami, Florida State, but I want to keep that name, image, and likeness. So I'm going to go ahead over here to FAU. I'm going to go to USF, UCF. So I think there is that piece. The last thing I kind of want to hit on is how do we think that affects, because with the increased roster, if you have the money and you give the scholarship, how does that affect, or where is the place for the walk-on? Because we're not going to go to 150 athletes, right? So that extra senior or that extra person coming back, does that bump out the walk-on?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that.
It's definitely done.
In that walk-on, that walk-on in that free agent NFL guy, they're in the same boat now. Because you get doubled up on, right? Because now from a free agent, and I played running back, and now you draft in the third round the running back that was supposed to be coming out the year before. Now I'm log jammed, and I'm going to get cut because they've already spent the money on this young man right here. It's very similar for the college form, right? If I'm only taking 80 to 100, yeah, I'm gonna trim the fat. Where's the fat get trimmed? It gets trimmed off of the free agent guy. It gets trimmed off of the walk-on guy. Those guys, those opportunities are going to be even more slim.
Yeah, if I'm a coach though, and I got a potentially 4 or 5 star guy that can maybe be on the practice squad, imagine that look. I mean, that look is going to give me a better look than a walk-on guy that, he's here for his brain. So, unfortunately, if you don't have a lot of talent or you're not that guy, I mean, you're going to be pushed out. And that's even with the free agent vets not getting an opportunity this year to make the squad. I mean, really, do they have an opportunity to make the squad this year with COVID? I mean, is the opportunity really there? You're not going to have any preseason games. I mean, we all know some guys look good in them shorts and when the crowd ain't out there, but you put a crowd out there in another team, they look like a whole other person. So
it's just like what's happening.
We throwing that out the window.
It's just like what's happening in America right now. If you are below that poverty line, if you're a guy that's a questionable guy, you better be doing everything right. You better be weight room. You better be early morning. You better be getting with your coach. You better be Zooming. You better be huddling. All the little extra stuff because that's all you have. You might not have the film now. You might not get the opportunity now. So you can't take the plays off now. You understand what I'm saying? So everything has changed. I just know that the fat is going to get trimmed, and it's going to be always off the edges.
So what about the portal? What about the portal? There's already a log jam and a bunch of athletes sitting in that portal. Now where do you go when somebody is not moving out?
I mean, me personally, if I'm an upperclassman, I'm trying out for the XFL. I mean, that's going to be the ticket. They got new management with The Rock. I think it's going to be. I mean, it was already having great success for it. The COVID hit, especially here in St. Louis. St. Louis coaches, y'all hear this? I'm for hire. All right. So I think it's going to be a great success with the ownership with The Rock. And I think a lot of those I think it's going to be some good players in the XFL over this next 2 years because a lot of people are going to have to make decisions. I don't want to go to school. I'm 25. I'm 20. I'm done. I done got my master's. I done got my bachelor's. I'm ready to move on. You know what? The league going to XFL.
Not to mention, it was a few guys, a good number of guys that were drafted out of the XFL this year. It was a good league. It was good football. It's a good league.
Yeah, I think
it was good football.
Yeah,
it was good to watch on TV. I meant to get to a game in person, but I didn't get a chance to. But I saw some good football out there.
I mean, here in St. Louis, they was about to sell out right before they was going to sell. Like they did the lower bowl, sold that out. Then they was about to sell out the top bowl, like we was the Rams, like it was the Rams all over again. So I think that's where the players going to have to go. That's I know we talked to Shaq, maybe Shaq or guys that's in that limbo area that they didn't get a chance to show out their senior year, so they're gonna have to go over here and develop and get better and try to get that back door into the league, as you say, that back door way into the league.
And it's not fair. Like I want everybody to know that it's not. That's the cards that we've been dealt. This isn't. The same situation that's going to happen for one of these seniors is not going to happen for a sophomore or junior. They like you said, they aren't truly and really affected, right? But there's going to be some kids that, their whole lives have gone up in flames. Their whole opportunity has gone to the wayside because of 1 year and several months of this thing being off. It's a challenging deal. I'm going to pray for my kids out there that are in that limbo state. Because that's a tough state to be in. I just know a little bit about that state, just being a retiree from the NFL and having that unexpected feeling, having that not knowing, having that you trying to figure out what's next. if I'm 18, 19 years old, if I'm 21, 22 years old, that's a tough spot for me to be in. I wasn't in that spot at that age. So my heart goes out to those young men, those young women that will be affected, and God bless them, man.
Like my mom used to say, life come at you fast.
And it does. And again, we're going to get ready to wrap this thing up. But Tommy, lastly, I would like you to kind of hit on what to expect Monday. Like I said, we have the Micah Pittman episode out right now across all streams of podcasts as well as social media platforms at Players Talk Live for Monday, because that is our day. We're pretty much we're releasing new episodes and new content on Monday. So this Monday, what do you have in store coming out this week, Tom? Because if people don't know, those graphics and those great videos that you're seeing, Tommy is the technical guy. He is the one that's behind it, putting it together and making us the brand that we're growing into. So kudos and shout out
TP.
to you.
Yeah.
So
light
again,
work.
Yeah. So it's not just us over here giving out knowledge. We're working behind the scenes and putting all our different skills together. So Tommy, what do we have coming out this Monday? What should the fans be looking forward to?
I think we got a big one right here. I think we got the #1 college recruiter in the nation, Kenny Sanders, coming on. He's going to talk to us about recruiting Saquon Barkley of the world, and the Michael Parsons of the world, and the Thibodeaux of the world out there in Oregon now, and continues having the #1 recruiting class wherever he's been. So we'll bring him on to have a little discussion about all those great things that he does. And then the live show, we'll come on live on a Facebook Live or YouTube Live in the coming weeks. Me and Eric, we'll communicate with our fans, the fans of Florida State and the fans of Wake Forest. Hopefully we'll get to play each other. We'll really, get it, back and forth then. But we'll come on live. We'll bring some high school players, some prospects that come on live, maybe do a play-by-play, while a game going on. We can just talk while the game's going on about what's happening and things like that. Just a little bit more interactive from Players Talk Live. We're going to bring more content.
Fan engagement. We're bringing more fan engagement.
And more fan engagement. Right now,
good.
you can find, especially on my Florida State fans, look at me in all y'all group messages. I'll be sending out videos and engaging back with you guys. So look out, and hopefully the Wake Forest fans do the same thing with E. And we trying to make this thing. We try to make this thing expand and be the people.
Yeah, we're going to get out to our groups. You know what I mean? I'm going to jump on the Wake Forest page and just start spreading this information and making sure that it gets out that, a little bit more about our featured guest for Monday. Kenny Sanders is also a great friend of mine, one of my best friends. We're also former high school teammates at McDonough School in the Baltimore area. So you'll get to hear a little bit of Baltimore chatter because everybody on the podcast is from the B-More, and we're having fun, man. So we look forward to it. Like we said, we got a lot of great information coming for you guys. I look forward to it, man. I love being on with TP. I love being on with Chad, and we got some great stuff for you, man.
And whoever listened to as well, go sign up on the Broad Network. Go on the website, sign up on the Broad Network, and submit your email address so you can get news about all the articles that come out on the Broad Network and things like that.
Again, I'm glad you said that, Tommy, because, yes, we are Players Talk Live, but we're on the Broad Network. We're bigger than just our show. We have, as we're brothers on this show, Brothers Do Football, we have brothers in our network. So we have other Broad podcasts for your interest. If you have a special team, I know you guys with St. Louis Rams, Baltimore Ravens, Titans, Bills, Lions, even a stint with the Browns, they all have brawls. So, again, if you love our content, hey, this is one platform, but, again, we're part of a network that has even more information. So we're like a one-stop shop, as Tommy always like to say, a resource center. So that's what we try to be for our student-athlete community, and that's what we want to be just for our fans. So, again, thank you for joining today's episode of Players Talk Live on the Broad Network. I'm your host, Chad Allen, with my co-hosts Tommy Polley and Eric King. We're signing out from Players Talk Live. You can follow us, again, at Players Talk Live on all social media platforms, all podcast platforms. And, again, we're signing out. Thank you again. We appreciate the growing audience each week, and we want to bring that content. So if you have any comments, please share comments, DM us, email us, playerstalklive@gmail, a message on Facebook, whatever it is. We want the feedback. We want to keep giving you great content each and every week because we are Players Talk Live, where athlete voices matter.